going to be learning, once again, Python Basics, Part 4, for those joining the live, and for the replay. I'll be putting a link down below where you can show the video or watch the video in replay. So let's go ahead and continue where we left off from yesterday.
In this tutorial, we're going to look at formatted strings in Python programming language. Formatted strings are particularly useful in situations where you want to dynamically generate some text with your variables. Let me show you. Let's say we have two variables, first name and last name. So first, we set this to John, and last, we set this to Smith.
All right. First equals John. Last equals Smith.
It's better to call these variables first name and last name because they're more descriptive. But here I'm using shorter names because I want you to see the entire code on the screen. So let's say with these two variables, we want to generate some text like this. John, in square brackets, Smith is a coder. Let's say we want to print this on a terminal. How do we do this? Well,
all right. Type third line, John, bracket, Smith is a coder.
we define another variable like message. Now here we add the first name. Now we need to concatenate this with a string that contains a space and a square bracket. Next, we need to add the last name. Then we need to add a string that contains the closing square bracket followed by is a coder.
All right. So on 3, type in message. Equals first plus last bracket is a coder. All right.
Okay, so then if we print message and run this program, we see John Smith.
Okay, so I guess we're erasing line 4 and then hit run. Oh, gotta hit do print. Print message. All right.
Is a coder, right? Now, while this approach perfectly works, it's not ideal because as our text gets more complicated, it becomes harder to visualize the output. So someone else reading this code, they have to visualize all these string concatenations in their head. This is where we use formatted strings. They make it easier for us to visualize the output. So I'm going to define another variable, let's say MSG, short for message, and set this to a formatted string. A formatted string is one that is prefixed with an F. So F quotes. Now, in between the quotes, first we want to add the value of the first name variable. So we add curly braces, and here we type first. Next, we add a space. We add our square brackets. In between the square brackets, we want to display the last name. So once again, we add curly braces and type last. And finally, here we type is a coder.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead, put MSG equals F brackets or quotes, and curly brackets first. Regular brackets. And curly brackets. Oops. Curly brackets. Last is a coder. Okay.
So this is what we call a formatted string. With these curly braces, we're defining placeholders or holes in our string. And when we run our program, these holes will be filled with the value of our variables. So here we have two placeholders or two holes in our string. One is for the value of our first name variable, and the other is for the value of the last name variable. Now compare this formatted string with string concatenation. With this formatted string, we can easily visualize what the output looks like, right? Now let's print this on the terminal to make sure we get the exact same output. So let's print message. There you go.
All right, so instead of the long spelled out message, we're going to print out the abbreviated message. All right.
So John Smith is a coder. So to define formatted strings, prefix your strings with an F and use curly braces to dynamically insert values into your strings.
Okay, just pause that real quick. So F for format and curly braces for strings. All right.
To whom it may concern. I'm applying for the position of data analyst, and I recently
In this Python tutorial, I'm going to show you some really cool things you can do with Python strings. So let's start by defining a variable, course, and we set that to Python for beginners.
All right, so let's go ahead and clear out. And we're going to type in Python for course equals for beginners. All right.
Now, to calculate the number of characters in this string, we can use a built-in function called len. So len, we give it this course variable.
All right, so I'm going to type in len. All right, so we're working on variables today. Just writing some notes, working on variables. All right. So len course. All right.
And then we can print the result. Let's run this program. So as you can see, we have 20 characters in this string. This is part.
All right, so we're going to do that. Print. Then course. Run that.
Particularly useful when we receive input from the user. For example, you have noticed that when you fill out a form online, each input field quite often has a limit. For example, you might have 50 characters for your name. So using this len function, we can enforce a limit on the number of characters in an input field. If the user types in more characters than we allow them, we can display an error. Okay. Now, this len function is another function built into Python. It's a general purpose function. So it's not limited to counting the number of characters in a string. In the future, when we look at lists, I'm going to show you that we can use this function to count the number of items in a list. So it's a general purpose function. Now, we also have functions specific to strings. For example, we have functions for converting all these characters to uppercase or lowercase. To access these functions, we use the dot operator. Let me show you. So first we type course, then dot. Look, these are all the functions that are specific to strings. Now, in more accurate terms, we refer to these functions as methods. This is a term in object-oriented programming that we'll look at in the future. But for now, what I want you to take away is that when a function belongs to something else or is specific to some kind of object, we refer to that function as a method. For example, here we have this function, upper, for converting the string into uppercase. Now, more accurately, because this function is specific to strings, we refer to this as a method. In contrast, len and print are general purpose functions. They don't belong to strings or numbers or other kinds of objects. Okay? So this is the difference between functions and methods. Now, let's look at this upper method. So let's print the result and run our program. There you go. We get all these characters displayed in uppercase. Now, note that this method does not change or modify our original string. In fact, it creates a new string and returns it. So if we print our course variable right after we call the upper method, you can see that our course variable still has its original form. So let's run this program one more time. There you go. Look, this is our original course variable. It's not modified. Now, similar to the upper method, we have another method for converting a string into lowercase. So let me show you. Print course.lower. Now let's run the program. So on the second line, you can see all characters are in lowercase. Now there are times that you want to find a character or a sequence of character in a string. In those situations, you can use the find method. So let me delete these few lines.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not with physical.
Find. Here we pass a character, let's say P, and this will return the index of the first occurrence of that character. Let me show you. So let's print the result. We get 0 because the index of the first capital P in our string is 0. As another example, if we pass a lowercase o here, let's see what we get. We get 4 because the index of this o here is 4. Now, note that the find method is case sensitive, so it's sensitive to lowercase and uppercase characters. As an example, if we pass an uppercase o here and run this program, we get -1 because we don't have an uppercase o anywhere in this string. Okay? We can also pass a sequence of characters. For example, we can pass beginners with a capital B. Let's run this program. We get 11 because the word beginners starts at index 11. Now, we also have a method for replacing a character or a sequence of characters, and that is called replace. So let's change find to replace. Let's say we want to replace beginners with absolute beginners. So we add a comma to pass a second value to this function, or more accurately, this method. We add a string. Here I'm going to pass absolute beginners. Okay, now let's run this program. So we get Python for absolute beginners. Again, this method, like the find method, is case sensitive. So if we pass beginners all in lowercase, this method is not going to find this exact word in our string. So it's not going to replace it with absolute beginners. Let's take a look. So I'm going to run the program one more time. Look, we still get Python for beginners. We can also replace a single character. For example, we can replace capital P with, let's say, capital J. Now, when we run this program, we get Python for beginners. So these are the find and replace method. And one last thing I want to show you in this tutorial. There are times that you want to check the existence of a character or a sequence of characters in your string. In those situations, you use the in operator. So let's say we want to know if this string contains the word Python. We can write an expression like this. String Python space in space course. So we're checking to see if Python is in the course variable. Now, this is an expression that produces a Boolean value, like a true or false. So we refer to this expression as a Boolean expression. Now, if we print this on the terminal, we should get true. And by the way, let me delete the second line. We don't need it anymore. So run the program, we get true. But if I change this capital P to a lowercase p and run the program, we get false because we don't have this exact sequence of characters in our string. Now, note that the difference between the in operator and the find method is that our find method returns the index of that character or sequence of characters. But the in operator produces a Boolean value. Do we have this or not? So that's the difference. Now, let's quickly recap all the cool things you learned to do with strings in this tutorial. We can use the len function to count the number of characters in a string. This is a general purpose function built into Python. We also have specific functions for strings, which we refer to as methods. These include upper for converting a string into uppercase. We also have lower and title methods. You learn about the find method, which returns the index of a character or sequence of characters. We have the replace method for replacing characters and words in a string. And finally, you learn about the in operator. So some characters in a string. So you have learned that in Python programming language, we have two types of numbers. Integers, which are whole numbers like 10, they don't have a decimal point. And floating point numbers or floats, which are numbers with a decimal point. Now, in this tutorial, we're going to look at the arithmetic operations supported in Python language. These are the same arithmetic operations that we have in math. We can add numbers, multiply them, and so on. So let's look at a few examples. We can print 10 plus 3. So this is the addition operator. We also have subtraction. We have multiplication. We have two kinds of division. Here's one with a forward slash. Let's run this program and see what we get. We get a floating point number. But we also have another division operator for getting an integer. So if we add another slash here and run this program, we get an integer. We have another operator called modulus, which is a percent sign, and this returns the remainder of the division. So when we run this program, we should get 1. There you go. And one last operator we have here is exponent, which is the power. So that is indicated with 2 asterisks, and this will return 10 to the power of 3. So let's run this program. We get 1,000. So these are the arithmetic operators in Python programming language. Now, for all these operators that you learned, we have an augmented assignment operator. That is very useful. Let me show you. So let's say we have a variable called x. We set it to 10. Now we want to increment this by 3. We'll have to write code like this. X, we set this to x plus 3. So Python interpreter will add 10 to 3. The result is 13, and then it gets stored into x again. So when we print x, we should see 13.
All right, let's do that one here. X equals 10. All right, x equals x plus 3. And then we are going to print x. All right, got 13.
There you go. So this is how we can increment a number, right? Now, augmented assignment operator is a way to write the same code, but in a shorter form. This is how it works. We type x plus equals 3. What we have on line 3 is exactly like what we have on line 2. So this is what we call the augmented assignment operator. We have augmented or enhanced the assignment operator.
All right, so let's see here. X plus equals 3. Run that.
Now, in this particular case, we are incrementing a number using the augmented assignment operator, but we can also subtract or multiply a number by a given value. For example, let's delete what we have on line 2. We can type subtract equal 3. So here we are subtracting 3 from x. When we run this program, we should see 7. There you go.
All right, so let's do that. So before, if you typed in on line 3, x plus equals 3, you're going to get a result of 13. But what he did is he erased line 3. And then in line 2 added x minus equals 3. And let's see if that works. Run. Got 7. All right.
I actually used to sell apartments for $9.45 an hour.
I had a wife and 2 kids that I had.
Now let me ask you a question. I'm going to clear all this code here. Define x and set it to 10 plus 3 times 2. What do you think is the result of this expression? This is a very basic math question that unfortunately a lot of people fail to answer. The answer is 16. Because in math we have this concept called operator precedence, which means the order of operations. So the multiplication operator has a higher precedence, so it's applied first, which means 3 by 2 is executed first, the result is 6, and then it's added to 10. That is why x should be 16 after we run this code. Let's verify that. So print x, run the program, x is 16. So this is what we call operator precedence. It's just a basic math concept. It's not about Python programming language. So all the other programming languages behave the same way. So here's the order. First we have the exponentiation, which is the power, like 2 to the power of 3. Then we have multiplication or division. And finally we have addition or subtraction. This is the order of operations. Let me show you another example. Here I'm going to add the exponentiation operator. So 2 to the power of 2. Once again, what do you think is the result of this expression? Pause the video and think about it for a few seconds. The answer is 22. Because the exponentiation operator takes precedence, so first 2 to the power of 2 is executed, the result is 4. Then 4 is multiplied by 3, that is 12. And finally 12 is added to 10. So x should be 22. So let's run this program and verify this. So I'm going to delete these lines here, run the program. There you go. X is 22. Now let me bring back these rules here. We can also use parentheses to change the order of operations. So if we have parentheses, it always takes priority. In this case, we can add parentheses around 10 plus 3. So this piece of code will be executed first. The result is 13. Then the exponentiation operator will be executed. So 2 to the power of 2 is 4. And finally, 4 is multiplied by 13. Now here's a little exercise for you. I'm going to set x to parenthesis 2 plus 3 times 10 minus 3. What is the result of this? Pause the video and think about it for a few seconds.
All right, so I'm going to go through this one. Equals 2 plus 3. You math whizzes out there, I'm sure you already got it. Times 10 minus 3. Okay, let's see, and then print x
So you learn that parenthesis always overrides the order. So this piece of code is executed first. The result is 5. Then between the multiplication and subtraction, you know that multiplication takes precedence. So next, 5 will be multiplied by 10. The result is 50. And finally, we have the subtraction. So 50 minus 3 will be 47. Let's verify this. Print x, run the program. There you go. I hope you guessed it right. So this is all about operator precedence. It's a very important topic, and I see it quite often in Python tests. So if you're preparing for a Python test, make sure to watch this tutorial one more time.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop there. That actual last one, the operator, the math operator, was very crucial for those who like math. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here. Good morning. Bam. Absolutely. So, I mean, for those who really like algebra, yes, as Darlene says, like algebra, I would definitely focus on this part of Python in terms of calculations, etc. Because I guess just like a calculator, you just need to learn this language and how to compute things. And basically, once you get all that done, you just hit print, put in parentheses an x, and see what comes out. But for all you mathematicians and people who love things like algebra and calculus, pre-cal, and trigonometry, etc., I'm sure this would be a great asset for you. So on that note, thanks for joining. I appreciate you. And tomorrow is Friday. Yes, Friday. So tomorrow will be part 5. And then we're going to take a break over the weekend and come back and do it again on Monday until we get this thing done. So thanks everyone for coming through, and for those people that are going to be watching on the summer replay, don't give up, don't give in. Make sure that you keep learning. Even if Python isn't your thing, maybe you can branch off to other things, or at least maybe just learn a specific thing that you really like to do in Python. As we go through this course, you say, oh, okay, I like that part. Let me focus on this. So hopefully this will give you some foundation and basics on Python. And so you can go ahead and pretty much utilize, this for your own purposes. So on that note, we will see you tomorrow, bright and early at 7 o'clock. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you later.
The way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but freed people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations.
I had no idea that church I was running by every day was something my grandfather established.
This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Overnight, it's like, oh, it's no longer the quarters, now it's Lincoln Heights. Oh, so now we get to use Abraham Lincoln for our name. And you think about all the other people that they could have used, but they picked Lincoln. And I think that's sort of a stereotypical of what they do.
There wasn't any black restaurants. As far as black business and weed, it wasn't none.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Why has it been easier for other groups than us?
Because of anti-black hatred.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR room, don't tune in.